There's a certain kind of older man whose words carry a different weight. He doesn't speak to impress, dominate, or win approval the way so many do. He speaks from a place of lived reality, calm, observant, self-anchored. And when he says something, it doesn't just reach a woman's ears, it reaches her nervous system. It makes her feel safe, seen, and understood in a way she didn't even know she was craving. People often assume women are pulled toward youth, charm, or physical appeal, but they miss the truth. The most attractive quality is emotional certainty, and older men who carry that certainty don't need a carefully crafted script. Their presence alone says more than words ever could. These are the men who know how to speak with intention. They don't rush, they don't over-explain, they don't chase validation. Instead, they hold themselves like someone who has walked through storms and come out with an inner clarity nothing can shake. When they say something simple, something genuine, it slips past a woman's defenses. Not because he is trying to get inside her emotionally or mentally, but because he is speaking from a grounded masculine energy that feels sincere, confident, and emotionally safe. A woman feels this difference immediately. She can sense when a man is trying to convince her of something, and she can sense when he is simply revealing himself without fear. Older men who master this don't speak to manipulate, they speak to connect. They don't demand attention, they command it through self-possession. They don't argue or debate to be right, they communicate to be understood. And in a world full of shallow noise, that stands out more than anything. When he says things like, "I hear you," or "take your time," or "you don't need to pretend with me," something inside her unclenches. These are simple sentences, but they hit different coming from someone who isn't seeking an outcome. His steadiness gives her permission to relax. His maturity gives her space to breathe. His patience shows her that connection isn't a race, it's a rhythm. People underestimate how much a woman longs to be understood. Not judged, not fixed, not controlled, but understood. And when a man communicates, with emotional intelligence, presence, and truth, she feels it not just mentally, but physically. Her guard lowers, her curiosity heightens, her trust grows. She starts leaning into the conversation without realizing it. And suddenly, she's not thinking about whether he's older or younger. She's thinking about how he makes her feel, safe, valued, and deeply seen. Because attraction isn't built on age, it's built on energy. And the energy of a man who knows himself is irresistibly magnetic. It pulls her in effortlessly, without strategies, without games, without trying to be anything other than a grounded, emotionally stable version of himself. And that is where connection truly begins. Women respond most to emotional certainty, not age, because emotional certainty is the foundation of how safe, valued, and understood a woman feels in someone's presence. Age can give experience, but experience alone doesn't guarantee stability, clarity, or emotional maturity. Emotional certainty is different. It is a man's ability to remain grounded in who he is, what he feels, and what he intends, without becoming reactive, insecure, or inconsistent. A woman instantly recognizes when a man carries this quality because it shows in the way he listens, the way he speaks, the way he sets boundaries, and even the way he holds eye contact. It's an energy that says, "I am here, I am aware, and I am not afraid of connection," and that is what her nervous system responds to before anything else. Many people misunderstand female attraction by assuming it revolves around charm, looks, or age, but a woman's deeper attraction is tied to how a man makes her feel in his presence. Emotional certainty creates a field where her guard naturally lowers. She doesn't feel judged. She doesn't feel pressured. She doesn't feel like she needs to perform or impress. Instead, she feels at ease. Her anxiety quiets down. Her thoughts flow naturally. Her intuition relaxes. This shift doesn't come from what a man says, it comes from how he holds himself mentally and emotionally. A man who knows what he feels doesn't communicate in confusion, mixed signals, or emotional volatility. He speaks with intention and listens with presence, and that makes a woman feel like she can finally stop overthinking and just breathe. Women are emotionally intuitive by nature. They pick up on subtle changes in tone, energy, attention, and consistency much faster than most men realize. When a man is uncertain inside, it shows without him saying a word. The nervous laughter, the rushed explanations, the overcompensation, the need for validation, the defensiveness. These signals activate her guard because they signal emotional instability. But when a man is certain of himself, his energy becomes predictable in the best way. He doesn't panic when things don't go his way. He doesn't pull away when emotions enter the conversation. He doesn't collapse under pressure or abandon himself to be liked. This consistency creates trust, and trust creates attraction. A woman feels emotionally safe with a man who is certain because certainty communicates maturity. Certainty says he has lived enough, learned enough, and reflected enough to understand himself. Certainty says he isn't controlled by impulses, fears, or insecurities. Certainty says he can handle emotions, his and hers, without shutting down or exploding. This doesn't mean he is perfect or emotionless. It means he is regulated, and emotional regulation is one of the strongest signs of inner strength. This is why emotional certainty often outshines age. A 50-year-old man can still be emotionally immature, reactive, and unstable, while a 30-year-old man can carry depth, calmness, and clarity. Age doesn't create attraction, emotional intelligence does. When a man is emotionally certain, he isn't threatened by strong opinions, emotional expression, or vulnerability. He doesn't misinterpret a woman's feelings as attacks or demands. Instead, he hears what she is really saying beneath her words. This ability to read emotional truth without taking things personally makes a woman feel deeply understood. Understanding eliminates emotional distance, and emotional closeness intensifies attraction. A woman will always remember the man who made her feel understood because understanding is one of her deepest emotional needs. Emotional certainty also changes the way a man communicates. He doesn't hide behind vague statements or indirect messages. He says what he means without controlling or forcing outcomes. He expresses interest without fearing rejection. He sets boundaries without aggression. He apologizes without ego. He asks questions without interrogation. This style of communication turns small conversations into meaningful exchanges. A woman feels like she can open up without being punished for her honesty. She feels like she can express her needs without being shamed. She feels like her emotions aren't burdens but information he values. When a woman feels this kind of emotional openness, she responds with trust, softness, curiosity, and emotional intimacy. Her body relaxes, her voice softens, and her mind becomes more open. She feels invited instead of chased, chosen instead of pressured, valued instead of tested. None of this comes from age. It comes from a man's internal alignment. Another reason emotional certainty matters is because it creates a predictable emotional climate. A woman never knows what to expect from emotionally unstable men. They are warm today, cold tomorrow, confident one moment, insecure the next. This unpredictability is exhausting. But with a man who is emotionally certain, she doesn't walk on eggshells. She doesn't brace herself for sudden moods, disappearing acts, or emotional outbursts. His steadiness becomes a form of emotional shelter, not because he protects her from life, but because he doesn't add chaos to her life. Emotional certainty also influences attraction because it reflects purpose. A man with clarity knows where he stands, what he values, and what he wants. He doesn't rely on a woman to fill emotional gaps in him. He doesn't seek love to escape loneliness or insecurity. He seeks connection from a place of fullness. This makes a woman feel like she is joining his life, not rescuing it. And that dynamic transforms attraction into something deeper and lasting. Emotional certainty is powerful because it is rare. Many men avoid emotional depth, suppress their feelings, or operate through reactive patterns shaped by childhood wounds, old relationships, or unresolved fears. But when a man faces his inner world, understands it, and builds stability within himself, it changes how every woman experiences him. She feels the difference in the way he handles conflict, the way he stays patient during emotional moments, the way he responds to silence, the way he stays connected during tough conversations. Women respond to emotional certainty because it is the anchor that allows feminine energy to relax, open, express, and trust. It creates emotional chemistry, psychological safety, and a sense of connection that transcends age, appearance, or charm. It is the factor that quietly transforms interactions into attraction, and attraction into something meaningful without forcing, rushing, or performing. A grounded masculine presence creates instant safety because it communicates something deeper than words ever could. It signals to a woman that she is in the company of someone who is emotionally anchored, internally stable, and fully present. This kind of presence isn't about physical size, age, or dominance. It's about the energy a man carries in his body, his tone, his eyes, and his silence. A grounded man moves slowly, speaks intentionally, and listens fully. His calmness settles the emotional atmosphere around him. His energy feels predictable in the best way, not because he is boring, but because he is consistent. Consistency creates safety, and safety creates attraction. When a woman encounters a man like this, something inside her relaxes without her consciously choosing to. Women naturally scan for safety, not just physical safety, but emotional safety. They can sense when a man is centered versus when he is anxious, insecure, reactive, or disconnected. A man who is grounded doesn't need to prove anything or perform masculinity. His confidence shows up in how he breathes, how he handles pauses, and how he responds instead of reacting. He doesn't get pulled into emotional chaos or feel threatened by vulnerability. This is why his presence feels different. It's not loud or forceful, it's steady and controlled. A woman instantly feels more at ease because she senses that he isn't carrying hidden agendas, emotional volatility, or unresolved conflict within himself. When a man is grounded, his nervous system is regulated. This has a direct impact on a woman's nervous system. Humans co-regulate, meaning one person's stability can calm another person's internal world. A grounded masculine presence communicates through microsignals, calm body language, unhurried movements, level tone, and steady eye contact that isn't aggressive or intrusive. These cues tell her that he is not at war with himself internally. A man who is not at war with himself cannot become a threat to her emotionally. This kind of safety is powerful because it creates the environment where she can be herself fully without bracing for judgment or misunderstanding. A grounded presence also makes a woman feel emotionally held, even without physical touch. It gives her the sense that she can speak freely, express emotions safely, and show her authentic self without triggering defensiveness or withdrawal. When she talks, he doesn't rush to fix her feelings or shut them down. He holds space. He doesn't shrink from emotional intensity, nor does he make the moment about himself. This ability to stay steady in the face of emotion is extremely attractive because it is rare. Many men either shut down or escalate when emotions rise, but a grounded man can stay centered, which makes her feel that nothing she expresses will overwhelm him. This presence also creates trust because it demonstrates mastery over his own impulses. A man who is grounded is not emotionally erratic. He doesn't lash out, seek attention, or act out of insecurity. He doesn't disappear when things get difficult. He doesn't shift energy based on mood swings. He stays connected to himself, and that allows him to stay connected to her. A woman doesn't have to guess what version of him she will get. Predictability and emotional energy is one of the strongest forms of attraction for women because it signals emotional maturity. It tells her she is not dealing with someone who will make her feel unsafe or unimportant. A grounded masculine presence also influences how he listens. He listens without interruptions, without scanning for opportunities to dominate the conversation, and without drifting into distraction. His attention is clear and unbroken. When a woman speaks and a man listens with this level of presence, she feels heard, not just on the surface, but on a deeper emotional level. Feeling heard is a form of emotional protection. When she feels heard, she automatically feels safer. And safety is the foundation that allows attraction to grow naturally. Another dimension of grounded presence is how a man navigates silence. Uncomfortable men fear silence because silence exposes insecurity. Grounded men are comfortable in silence because their sense of self is not threatened by stillness or lack of noise. When a woman is with a man who is comfortable in silence, she senses depth. She senses that he is not desperate to fill space, impress her, or prove value. This makes her feel that the connection is not dependent on performance. It gives her room to breathe, to process, and to open up without pressure. Grounded presence also changes the way a man touches or moves. His gestures are controlled, intentional, and gentle. His body language communicates that he is aware of his surroundings and aware of her. He doesn't crowd her space, nor does he act timid. He maintains a balance that feels confident and respectful. This awareness makes her feel physically safe, which then leads to emotional openness. Women are highly sensitive to the body language of men, and they can instantly detect whether a man is embodying grounded or chaotic energy. A grounded man also carries emotional independence. He doesn't cling, seek approval, or derive his self-worth from a woman's attention. He shows up authentically whether she is impressed or not. He doesn't shift his personality to fit what he thinks she wants. This independence makes him trustworthy because it shows he isn't using the connection to fill emotional gaps. A woman feels safer with a man who doesn't rely on her to regulate his emotions. Emotional independence is attractive because it signals strength and emotional competence. Presence becomes grounding when a man is fully in his body instead of trapped in his mind. Overthinking creates tension, but embodiment creates calm. When a man is connected to his breath, aware of his posture, and conscious of his emotional state, he radiates a steady energy that makes a woman feel anchored. She senses that he isn't drifting, distracted, or disconnected. She senses that he is with her fully, not partially. This full presence is incredibly rare in a world full of fragmented attention, and rarity is attractive. A grounded masculine presence also changes how a woman feels about her own emotions. With an unstable man, she suppresses herself to avoid triggering conflict or insecurity. With a grounded man, she expresses herself freely because she feels accepted. This acceptance allows emotional intimacy to form effortlessly. Emotional intimacy is one of the strongest connectors for women, and a man who can create that atmosphere naturally becomes someone she feels drawn to on a deeper level. A woman doesn't choose grounded men because they are older or stronger. She chooses them because their presence feels like stability in a world that often feels unpredictable. Their calmness creates warmth. Their clarity creates trust. Their consistency creates emotional oxygen. And when a woman feels emotionally safe, she becomes more open, more connected, and more naturally drawn toward the man who creates that safety without effort or force. Intentional communication lowers a woman's defenses because it removes the uncertainty, confusion, and emotional guessing that often make her feel unsafe. When a man communicates without clarity, without emotional awareness, or without intention, a woman's mind automatically goes into protective mode. She starts analyzing tone, reading between the lines, and bracing for disappointment. But when a man speaks with genuine intention, clear, calm, steady, and honest, her entire nervous system responds. She feels grounded instead of anxious, understood instead of dismissed, valued instead of questioned. Communication becomes a bridge instead of a battlefield, and she moves closer instead of pulling away. Intentional communication begins with presence. When a man is truly present, his words are not rushed, careless, or reactionary. He listens before he speaks. He absorbs what she is saying rather than waiting for his turn to reply. He pays attention not just to her words, but to her emotions underneath them. This presence alone lowers her defenses because she doesn't feel she is competing for attention or fighting to be heard. She feels like the conversation matters to him. She feels prioritized, not tolerated. Presence communicates. You have my full attention, and that message is more powerful than any line or compliment. When a man communicates intentionally, he also removes ambiguity. Ambiguity is one of the biggest triggers for emotional protection. Mixed signals, sudden shifts in tone, vague statements, and inconsistent responses all create a sense of emotional danger. A woman begins to anticipate disappointment and guard herself from it. Intentional communication does the opposite. It gives her clarity about what he thinks, what he feels, and where he stands. He doesn't leave things half-said or confusing. He doesn't hide his meaning behind sarcasm, avoidance, or emotional withdrawal. Instead, he expresses himself in a direct but gentle way. This directness creates emotional safety because she no longer needs to guess his boundaries, intentions, or expectations. Another reason intentional communication lowers her defenses is because it minimizes emotional reactivity. When a man reacts impulsively, raising his voice, getting defensive, shutting down, or becoming sarcastic, her body instantly tenses. She prepares for conflict, misunderstanding, or emotional harm. But a man who communicates with intention doesn't speak from a triggered state. He pauses, regulates himself, and responds from calm awareness rather than emotional impulsiveness. This ability to stay emotionally steady during difficult conversations tells her that he is capable of navigating complexity without becoming unstable. It reassures her that expressing her truth won't push him away or provoke aggression. Her defenses soften because she feels safe expressing depth, vulnerability, or disagreement. Intentional communication is also rooted in honesty. Honesty is not bluntness, harshness, or emotional dumping. It's sincerity delivered with maturity. A man who communicates intentionally doesn't manipulate through silence, passive aggression, guilt, or charm. He says what is true even if it is uncomfortable, but he delivers it with care and responsibility. This kind of honesty builds trust. She no longer feels the need to decode his words or question his motives. She can trust that what he says aligns with what he feels. Trust dissolves emotional walls, and honesty is the foundation of that trust. Another dimension of intentional communication is emotional validation. Validation doesn't mean agreement. It means acknowledging her feelings without diminishing them. When a woman shares something emotional, she is not just sharing facts. She is sharing internal experiences. A man who responds intentionally says things like, "I hear you," or "that makes sense," or "I understand why that felt that way." These simple statements soothe her nervous system. They tell her she is not being judged or misunderstood. Validation lowers defenses because it tells her that her emotional reality matters. Many women shut down not because they are overly sensitive, but because they are tired of being emotionally invalidated. A man who understands this can create profound emotional safety through simple, intentional acknowledgement. Intentional communication also involves asking thoughtful questions, not interrogative questions driven by insecurity or suspicion, but gentle, curious questions that show he wants to understand her deeper world. When he asks things like, "What did that mean for you?" or "How did that make you feel?" or "What do you need from me right now?" she feels emotionally seen. She feels that he cares not just about the event, but about her experience of it. This deepens connection and reduces emotional distance. Her defenses lower because she senses genuine curiosity instead of superficial interest. Tone plays a huge role as well. A man can say the right words with the wrong tone and still trigger defenses. Intentional communication means being aware of how his tone affects her emotional experience. A calm, steady tone signals stability. A rushed tone signals impatience. A dismissive tone signals disinterest. A cold tone signals withdrawal. When he intentionally chooses a tone that expresses presence and sincerity, she feels emotionally safer. Her body relaxes because tone is processed on a subconscious level long before words are understood. Another reason intentional communication matters is because it shows emotional responsibility. A man who communicates intentionally takes ownership of his feelings. He doesn't blame, accuse, or project. He speaks from "I feel" rather than "you make me feel." This removes hostility from conversations and turns them into opportunities for connection. A woman lowers her defenses when she feels she is speaking to someone who isn't looking for a fight, someone who isn't trying to win, someone who wants understanding over dominance. Emotional responsibility makes conversations feel collaborative instead of combative. Intentional communication also shows maturity in how a man handles boundaries. He expresses them clearly without aggression, guilt-tripping, or avoidance. He explains his limits in a way that respects her, not in a way that punishes her. This teaches her that she can have boundaries too without fear of backlash. Mutual boundaries create emotional safety because they make the connection feel balanced, respectful, and predictable. Even the pacing of communication changes everything. A man who communicates with intention doesn't rush decisions, conversations, or emotional moments. He takes time to think, reflect, and choose his words carefully. This patience is calming to a woman's emotional world. It tells her that he values the relationship enough not to handle important emotional moments recklessly. Slowness becomes safety, and safety becomes attraction. Intentional communication works because it shows mastery over self. A man who communicates this way is not threatened by emotions. He is not intimidated by vulnerability. He is not weakened by honesty. Instead, he uses communication as a way to build connection instead of walls. A woman feels this difference immediately. She feels it in her chest, in her breath, in the way her mind stops preparing for hurt and starts opening to possibility. Intentional communication shifts her from guarded to receptive, from cautious to trusting, from distant to engaged, because it creates a world where she feels protected rather than exposed. Maturity becomes magnetic when it's calm and unobtrusive because true maturity isn't something a man announces, performs, or tries to prove. It's something he carries quietly in the way he moves, thinks, reacts, and holds himself. Women feel this kind of maturity before they consciously recognize it. It's in his steadiness, his emotional balance, his patience, his grounded confidence, and his subtle but powerful self-awareness. Maturity that is calm doesn't overwhelm a woman, it relaxes her. Maturity that is unobtrusive doesn't demand her attention, it earns it. This combination becomes irresistibly attractive because it creates an energy of stability and depth that is rare and deeply comforting. A mature man doesn't seek validation in loud or showy ways. He isn't trying to prove he is wise, experienced, or emotionally evolved. His maturity is visible through quiet signals. The way he listens without interrupting, the way he pauses before responding, the way he maintains emotional control even in tense moments, the way he chooses clarity over chaos. This subtle confidence tells a woman that he isn't ruled by impulse or insecurity. He isn't fragile or easily rattled. He isn't trying to impress because he doesn't need external approval to feel grounded. This lack of performative behavior is what draws her toward him. She feels the difference between a man who seeks attention and a man who naturally holds attention through his calm presence. Calm maturity becomes magnetic because it creates emotional predictability. Women are sensitive to shifts in energy, tone, and behavior. When a man is emotionally immature, he becomes inconsistent, warm one day, cold the next, patient in one moment, explosive in the next. This unpredictability activates a woman's defenses. But a mature man's calmness creates a stable environment where she doesn't feel the need to anticipate emotional storms. His reactions are thoughtful instead of impulsive. His words are intentional instead of reckless. His mood is steady instead of unpredictable. This stability makes her feel emotionally safe, and emotional safety becomes the foundation of deep attraction. Unobtrusive maturity also shows in how a man handles conflict. Instead of escalating tension, he diffuses it through self-awareness. He doesn't need to dominate, win every argument, or protect his ego at all costs. He seeks resolution instead of victory. He can admit when he's wrong without becoming defensive. He can express frustration without attacking. He can discuss difficult topics without shutting down. This type of conflict management signals emotional intelligence. A woman feels secure knowing that disagreements won't become battles. She feels valued because her emotions won't be dismissed or minimized. This softly powerful approach makes her trust him more deeply, and trust naturally intensifies attraction. Another dimension of calm maturity is emotional self-regulation. A mature man has learned not to outsource his emotions onto others. He doesn't look to a woman to soothe him, calm him, or fix him. He handles his inner world with responsibility. He identifies his triggers, manages his reactions, and communicates his needs without guilt or pressure. This emotional independence is magnetic because it shows strength. A woman doesn't feel burdened by his emotions or responsible for his stability. She feels like she is with someone who can walk beside her, not lean on her to hold his entire emotional weight. Maturity also appears in how a man treats time and space. He respects both his own and hers. He doesn't demand constant attention or approval. He doesn't cling out of fear of losing her. He understands that healthy connection requires room for individuality. He honors her boundaries without taking them personally. He gives space without withdrawing. This balance between closeness and independence creates harmony. A woman feels cared for but not controlled, connected but not suffocated. His ability to maintain this equilibrium makes him stand out from men who operate from insecurity or emotional chaos. A calm, mature man also communicates differently. His communication is steady, honest, and compassionate. He doesn't use passive-aggressive remarks, silent treatment, manipulation, or emotional games. He speaks with clarity and listens with empathy. His honesty isn't harsh, it's thoughtful. His vulnerability isn't chaotic, it's grounded. This kind of communication feels safe and refreshing to a woman because it eliminates guessing, fear, and emotional volatility. She feels like she can trust his words and trust his silence. She feels like she can express herself without triggering defensiveness or emotional shutdown. His communication style becomes a quiet reassurance that she is valued and understood. Maturity also shows in how he carries ambition and purpose. He doesn't chase goals from insecurity or competition. He pursues growth from intention. He doesn't boast about success or collapse from failure. He takes responsibility for his journey with humility and commitment. This creates a sense of direction that is attractive because it shows he has a life he is intentionally building. A woman feels drawn to a man who moves with purpose rather than drifting through life without clarity. His sense of direction creates emotional gravity that pulls her in without force. Unobtrusive maturity shows in small moments as well. It's visible in how he handles frustration, how he treats people who can't benefit him, how he controls his impulses, how he practices patience, how he listens to silence, how he honors commitments, and how he chooses integrity even when no one is watching. These subtle behaviors accumulate and create a powerful presence. Women sense maturity through patterns, not performances. A mature man doesn't need attention to validate his worth. His character speaks louder than his ego ever could. Maturity becomes magnetic because it creates emotional richness. A woman feels safer to open up, softer in her energy, more expressive, more trusting, and more willing to connect deeply. She feels emotionally protected, supported, and understood. His calmness becomes a space where her emotions can exist without fear. His steadiness becomes a container for emotional intimacy. His unobtrusive strength becomes the grounding influence that allows her to relax into her feminine energy fully and naturally. What makes this kind of maturity irresistible is that it is not built on dominance or pressure. It is built on self-mastery. A man who has mastered himself becomes someone a woman can lean into without losing herself. His calmness doesn't minimize her emotions. It enhances her emotional safety. His steadiness doesn't overshadow her. It empowers her. His maturity doesn't demand attention. It earns admiration. Calm, unobtrusive maturity is magnetic because it is the quietest, rarest, and most powerful form of masculinity. It does not chase, perform, or seek approval. It simply exists with depth, balance, and presence. And a woman feels this stability like a warmth she didn't know she needed. Attraction grows naturally when a man isn't seeking validation because women can instantly feel the difference between a man who is genuinely present and a man who is performing for approval. A man who operates from a place of validation seeking carries a subtle tension in his energy. His words feel calculated, his compliments feel transactional, his attention feels needy, and his behavior feels shaped by what he thinks she wants, rather than who he truly is. This makes her defenses rise because she senses that his interest isn't grounded in authenticity. It's grounded in a need to be chosen. But when a man isn't seeking validation, his presence becomes relaxed, confident, and deeply attractive. She feels the calmness in his energy, the stability in his intentions, and the freedom in the connection. Instead of trying to win her over, he simply shows up as himself. And that authenticity is what draws her closer. A man who doesn't need validation communicates differently. His compliments are genuine, not strategic. His questions come from curiosity, not insecurity. He gives attention because he wants to, not because he's hoping for something in return. This kind of communication feels warm and safe to a woman because it isn't fueled by desperation or pressure. She doesn't feel like she's being pulled into emotional obligations. She doesn't feel responsible for his self-worth. She doesn't feel like she must constantly reassure him. She can simply enjoy the connection without the weight of someone else's emotional needs pressing down on her. When a man is not seeking validation, he doesn't hide his true thoughts and feelings out of fear of being judged. He speaks naturally, expresses himself honestly, and maintains his boundaries without guilt. This level of authenticity tells a woman that he isn't trying to shape-shift into whatever he thinks will impress her. He allows himself to be seen fully, not the edited version, not the curated version, not the performative version. This transparency makes her feel that she is getting to know a real person, not a man wearing a mask. And women trust what feels real far more than what feels perfect. Validation-seeking men unconsciously place emotional pressure on women. They want constant reassurance, consistent praise, and emotional responses that soothe their insecurity. Even if they never say it aloud, women feel this pressure through small cues, overly quick replies, fear of silence, constant over-explaining, excessive agreeableness, and apologizing unnecessarily. This makes her feel responsible for his emotional comfort. But a man who doesn't need validation removes that pressure entirely. His emotional world is self-contained. He doesn't rely on her reactions to feel good about himself. This creates emotional spaciousness where she feels free, not confined. Her natural attraction grows in this space because she senses strength rather than neediness. Another reason attraction grows naturally is because a man who doesn't seek validation moves with a quiet confidence that women find irresistible. His decisions aren't influenced by fear of rejection. His energy isn't shaped by her approval. He doesn't hesitate to express interest, yet he doesn't crumble if the interest isn't reciprocated. He knows who he is. He knows what he wants. He isn't bargaining for affection or competing for worthiness. This detachment from outcome creates a powerful masculine energy that draws her in because it signals emotional independence and self-respect. A man who doesn't seek validation also communicates through his body language. His posture is relaxed, not stiff. His eye contact is steady, not searching. His movements are natural, not performative. He doesn't fidget, overreact, or rush. His energy says, "I am comfortable with myself," and comfort is contagious. When she senses this, she feels more comfortable too. A woman becomes more open, expressive, and soft in the presence of a man who is emotionally self-assured. Her guard lowers because she senses that he won't crumble under the weight of her attention or emotions. This lack of validation seeking also influences how he navigates emotional moments. Instead of reacting from insecurity, like interpreting silence as rejection or disagreement as disrespect, he stays grounded and patient. He doesn't assume the worst or panic when energy shifts. His emotional stability reassures her that she won't have to manage his reactions. She can be honest without hurting him, expressive without triggering him, and authentic without fearing emotional consequences. This emotional freedom makes her feel close to him in a way that can't be forced through performance or chasing. A man who doesn't seek validation also respects his own boundaries naturally. He doesn't say yes to things he doesn't want just to please her. He doesn't abandon his schedule, values, or priorities to gain approval. He maintains his own life, his interests, his friendships, his direction. This independence is deeply attractive because it tells a woman that he will not lose himself in the relationship. He will stand beside her, not behind her or beneath her. And women naturally feel safer with men who can maintain their individuality without fear. When a man isn't validation seeking, he also handles rejection differently. Instead of taking it personally, he sees it as a mismatch rather than a verdict on his worth. This emotional resilience is extremely attractive because it shows that he has a strong sense of self. She feels that he is grounded in who he is, not dependent on external praise. And when a man has this level of self-regard, his energy becomes magnetic. He becomes someone she respects intuitively because he respects himself. Attraction thrives where there is no pressure. When a man is trying too hard, chasing too eagerly, or molding himself too quickly, a woman feels boxed in. She feels like she is being asked to provide emotional nourishment instead of receiving emotional connection. But when a man isn't seeking validation, there is a natural ease between them. The pace is organic. The connection unfolds without force. She leans in because she wants to, not because she feels obligated. A man who doesn't look to a woman to define his worth creates an emotional environment where she can relax, be herself, and approach him willingly. His independence, authenticity, emotional self-mastery, and calmness make her feel that he is a partner, not a project. His presence feels like an invitation, not a demand. And in that space of emotional freedom, a woman's attraction grows naturally, effortlessly, and deeply.